Hi everyone, and welcome to the Say As It Is with Pete podcast series. I'm Pete, your host, and each week I will bring you some frank and honest conversations covering various topics from learning and development, apprenticeships, funding, HR, strengths, recruitment, ESG, well-being, ED&I, employability, and much, much more. So let's get this week's episode underway and say as it is.
So thank you for listening to this week's episode. I am Pete for Say As It Is with Pete. And in this podcast episode, as we continue to talk about recruitment through April, we are going to talk about employability organisations that you could team up with as an employer to tap into more candidates. So on this podcast, I have a very special guest with me, a great friend, someone that I've known for a while now and is my recruitment guru. So can you introduce yourself for me?
Yes, of course I can. So my name is Darren Cristie. You can probably tell from the accent that I'm not south of the border. So based up in Glasgow, work for a company called PeoplePlus. And essentially what my role is to create connections and routeways and pathways for people who are currently unemployed to find a routeway or a pathway to move into sustainable employment. Sustainable employment is one of the big things that we'll talk about, but it's moving them into areas that they can essentially build a career in or move into something that's more sustainable than what they're currently doing just now. So that is my job, is to kind of create the links and the pathways for those things to take place. And that's where you and I have met, is creating that pathway using Omni as a fantastic outlet for us to put people into, and have get some wonderful stories about people that have went from unemployment and getting support all the way up to sustainable employment with you guys, and even some people that have now been promoted up to supervisor, which is just wonderful.
Yeah. So because you've been in recruitment for years, haven't you?
Oft. One or two. I've kind of been doing this for about 13 years in total now. So I've worked in employability, and then sold my soul to the devil and moved to mainstream recruitment. Worked in commercial recruitment for a number of years, and 3 years ago got asked if I would come back into employability. Great opportunity and just a great sector to work in. So yes, I've worked in various different recruitment roles for the last 13 years. Just easy to say that out loud.
Yeah. So when you before you went to PeoplePlus, do you think working in recruitment and companies before, do you think that was kind of missing that part of recruitment?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I love about doing what I do now is we genuinely make a difference to people. And everything we do is all government funded, so I'm not asking anyone for money, I'm not taking anything. It is literally about creating a pathway for someone. When people come to PeoplePlus, they get assigned an individual key worker who works with them on a one-to-one basis. The whole point of that is that it's not put 20 people in a room and volley them through a process and hope for the best. It's very much a kind of one-to-one process. It's very much an individualised service. And that's the part that I love, because since we've been doing this and creating partnerships with companies like Omni and various other companies that we've been working with, it's the most satisfaction I've ever had from my job, and as long as I can remember, really? Because we genuinely make a difference for people. We genuinely help and support people, working with organisations like yourself. And when I say good organisations, I mean organisations where people are generally treated as better than just a number, and we can see some real tangible stories of people who've went from not particularly great places in unemployment and various other things to now fully sustainable life positions. One of the professionals we're working with just now was kind of sofa surfing before they came to us, and has now been in a position whereby they've been able to buy their own flat, which to me is 100% the reason why we do the job.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep. So yeah, mate. So it's a kind of all-in encompassing process.
Yeah, I think because I spotted you on LinkedIn.
Yes.
This is how we found each other across the starry skies. I think there was a post you did on LinkedIn, and I think at that time I was still overseeing recruitment at Omni, and I remember seeing that and thinking, yeah, Glasgow's somewhere we need anyway, and I think that's where we reached out. And I think that was great, because right from the beginning, and that's what I love about the partnership with kind of you and PeoplePlus is that honesty, and like you've taken the time to listen to an employer rather than, like, unfortunately I have to say, DWP, not that I want to badmouth them, but sometimes you give them job specs and they just randomly send you people without even looking at what you want.
Mate, I think that's one of the big things that we've had such a success with, is we are not a recruitment agency. My job is not there just to send you CVs and kind of throw enough at the wall and hope it sticks type idea. It's very much about listening to the employer, finding out exactly what you're looking for. On the flip side of that, sitting down with the participants and finding out exactly where they're at and what they'd like to do and what roles and transferable skills, etc., etc. And it's how we marry that up in a complete process. And it's part of the reason why we've had the great sustainable levels that we've had, is that rather than just throwing a CV to you and you go, yeah, person interviewed okay, and then a couple of weeks later we find out for whatever reason that it's not working out. This is very much about kind of bringing everything together, a very holistic approach towards this. Looking at it from both sides of the fence, so we very much work with the employer and very much work with the participant, and it's about trying to kind of marry that up where possible, and it's genuinely proven to be just such a productive process for all concerned. It's great from an employer standpoint because you're getting genuine bona fide people coming forward that know about who you are, want to work in your sector, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think.
You go. No, you go.
No, I was going to say, because for me, when we made that contact, we had that initial call, it's very straightforward. You know, you tell me what you did, what you could do, and then off you went. And then I think that was the greatest point, is because you knew what we were wanting.
Yep.
And you went and worked on it, and then you came back with candidates, and then it's kind of worked from there. I think it was far better, because I like the employability parts of them knowing kind of about the industry, what they're getting into, rather than someone just turning up blind.
Yes.
So I know we worked on the cleaning thing, and you've got, and I apologise for not remembering her name in the office, your trainer.
Sheena.
She's going to kill me. So I think that was quite good, because like we were able to give you some content and you to build that in. So that, I find, having that openness and that partnership was great, because, and I think that's the key about this, is when you're teaming up with employability companies, is having that open conversation and sharing kind of things together. Does that help a lot more within the
Absolutely.
process?
I mean, I think from our point of view, that's where you hear me talking a lot about the fact that you're not an employer to us, you're a partner with us.
Yeah.
And the reason why we talk about that is when it comes to partnerships are forged over time. So it obviously has to start somewhere, but one of the first things we'll do in the initial meeting is we really delve into the business, what type of people you're looking for, what makes a successful candidate working for you guys, and we can, and then obviously the more we work with you guys, the more we find out about what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Even from our point of view as well, when it comes to participants, we find out more about the type of participant who tends to be successful working in not just your sector, but also working within the organisation itself. So it's proven to be the partnership part is critical, mate, and that's why I always say this to people, that if you want to start working with us, that's great, but it's a partnership we're creating here, because I'm not a recruitment agency, so don't send me a job spec and expect me just to send you CVs. That's not my job. It's not what we're here to do. It's very much about a full holistic understanding of what works for you, what works for the participants, and then making sure we can marry that up where possible. So it's been brilliant, mate, genuinely, and I think that's one of the big things that's been, again, another success for us, is most of the employers we're working with now, we've worked with them for years, and it's really benefited everybody, because we've got a better understanding of what you need, you've got a much better understanding of how we operate, and it's just then about refining processes to make sure we can just get it sharper and sharper and sharper the more we're working together.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing. I think that's probably the pitfall that some people fall down as employers, is we use employability companies as recruiters when you're not, and I think that's a pitfall. Like, as an employer, we could fall down on that one and go, oh, they're recruit for all our positions. Well, actually, charge us a fee then, charge us 12% of their salary. But you're not, you're there to, and that's what I like about that journey candidate. So obviously you've got people that come to you. So how do those candidates get to PeoplePlus then?
So there's a myriad of different ways that they'll come over to us. Again, and I know I'll mention this a few times in the podcast, partnerships that we create on the other side of the fence. So to get people to come into this, we have a large number of them coming from DWP. So the job centre send us over some participants. But we also partner up with local charities, local food banks, local housing associations. As much as we are one of the bigger employability providers across the whole of the UK, each office very much operates in a very local feel, a local way to operate. So it means that, for example, with the local community centres, we have a physical presence in the local community centres. We have people that physically go to them, sit down with them, we'll run workshops in them, we'll do information sessions. So we can say, look, does anybody have an interest in working in hospitality cleaning, for example? And then we will run a session. And again, when it comes to the partnership part of it, you've given us some materials that we can then present to them to say, this is what the job is, this is what the job's not. And because of the kind of local partnerships I've created, it's meaning that we're getting, you know, the way these things operate. One person comes to us and gets a job from one community centre. They then feed that back to all the other people that are in the community centre. Everyone's like, oh, I want to go.
Yeah.
If you get a job, I want to go with them. Brilliant people. And that's where, again, and going back to the partnership part of it, we had to start somewhere. So we started off maybe ones and twos, and now we're getting like 10s and 12s and 15s sent over to us. And it's literally because people are seeing real success stories of people that have went there, and people look at them and think, well, if you've done it, I can do it.
Yeah.
It's not like they're looking at some mythical character. They're literally looking at people who sat next to them in an information session or sat next to them. They've moved into work, so why can't I? Well, that's fine. Come on to the programme, get all the help and support. We'll sit down with you. We support you with CVs and interview skills and training courses and blah, blah, blah. All the different things that prepare you to become as job ready. I hate that phrase, but as job ready as possible. And then again, because they've come through that journey with us, we've got a much better understanding of them. We've worked with you, so we've got a better understanding of you, and that's where we can really make that match up happen and take place better.
No, and I love it, and it's worked. So I remember when I first came up to Glasgow, and we had those interviews, and I think I was there with one of the trainers then. That was great. I think we took all but one. I think.
Yep.
And that's what I love, because I think, and again, it's that key word in the whole thing is the partnership. You're not a supplier, you're not a client. We're partners in this.
100%.
Work together. And I think that was great, because when I looked at it from the Omni side, who I work with, that, you know, we had over 20% turnover in Glasgow.
Yep.
Going to you guys, we dropped it down to 69.
Yep.
And that's because it took its time, and we had the pandemic in between.
Yep.
We had a few new hotels. But that is great, because then we set that initial relationship and partnership up, and then it's cascaded down to the team in Glasgow. They're working closely, and the best thing I loved about it was where you would kind of come with the candidates to interview, or we'd have the interviews at the office to make it a little bit more comfortable for them. Yeah. And I think that works amazingly.
Peter, one of the big things with the partnerships is a lot of times you'll get asked why we put so much time and effort into the journey, the front end of the journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because in theory, I could just send you CVs. But the reality is, I know that that's not the best way to do it. So we put more work into the front end, because we know we get the benefits massively on the back end of the process, where people not just moving into work, but moving into sustainable work, where we've got people who've been with Omni now for 18 months, 2 years, and still there and still enjoying working there. So that's where even a broken clock's right twice a day. It's not to say that if we sent CVs over to you that couldn't happen or couldn't be fixed. But we have a much higher percentage of success rate by doing the front end of the process in a lot more detail.
I think that's better. I know you hate the word job ready, but I think it's great because they've gone through that employability course. They kind of know what's coming. They still want to stick with it. They get to the interview. They feel a bit more comfortable. We get to see them, but we know what you're putting in front of us is what we're looking for. And I have to say, and I don't like saying it, but there are similar to PeoplePlus and companies out there that offer the same, but really what they do is they just end up sending you CVs.
I think one of the things that we get is we get a box to operate in. And the reason why it's not a great way to put it, but with because we're all government funded, the government gives us parameters that we must work within.
Yeah.
And essentially that's how I use it as an example. They give us a box to operate in, so everything we do must conform to this box. And we can essentially do what we want within that box, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's where PeoplePlus have had such a great success, is that there's other providers who might look at what we do and think, we do a lot of work. Yes, we do a lot of work, but the benefits we get off the back end of it, and it's why we're so successful when it comes to bidding and tendering for various different contracts, is that we have the tangible stuff that we can show on the other side of that. So yes, we put in a little bit more work here, but we think that it massively benefits on the side when it comes to actually putting people into work and sustainable work. So
I think as well, like we've seen from this, there's hidden talent we wouldn't normally see and we wouldn't have access to. So like, as you say, when you're working with like the little community groups, charities and things, they're probably things as employers that we have a corporate and social responsibility to engage with. Yes. But actually, do we do that as employers? And I would probably put my hands up and say, probably not enough. And you've got all this ESG going at the moment, and talk with people about environmental sustainability, governance, recruitment, all that kind of thing. And you're thinking, well, actually, are we engaging with people that may have disabilities?
Yeah, mate, look, see when it comes to the kind of CSR, ESG, current, I suppose buzzwords, if you want to call it that. Yeah. But there is a lot of people, most of the employers I deal with, because I deal with employers day to day, most of the time I find that the employers want to do the right thing. They want to engage more, they want to do whatever, but they have no idea how to. And that's where essentially PeoplePlus are that easy solution to the problem, if you want to call it. We're fully government funded, so we don't cost you anything. We already engage with people, like we mentioned, in the local communities, etc., etc. We have these information sessions where a lot of times the whole point of the information session is to talk about the sector itself. And there's people, we've got people that, I use this really, really bad example, it's like a proper dad joke, where I'll get people to come to me who might want to be an astronaut. Well, in Glasgow, there's not that many astronaut jobs going. So
you never know.
So you never know. And I'm not going to dampen dreams to say to someone that they can't get a job as an astronaut. But let's look at what sectors are recruiting. And your sector is recruiting just now. Yeah. So one of the reasons we have these information sessions is to essentially give people information on a sector that they would never possibly have considered before. So they might turn around and say, well, I've never done that before. Well, the actual fact, with the fantastic training that they get from a company like Omni, most clients that we're working with, all they're really looking for is somebody with the right type of attitude and also can do the job. So, for example, childcare and all that stuff gets considered, but can you do the job, as in like being able to turn up in time and do that part of it? And do you have the right type of attitude? If you've got all that stuff and a willingness to work, the clients that we're working with will train you in the rest. So there's sectors you can go and work in that you would never have thought about previously. I mean, how many people would come up to me and say, oh, I can't wait to go and work in housekeeping? Well, very few. But we've moved more than 100 people into work in that sector. So it's one of the ones where people don't come to us thinking, I want to work in housekeeping, but leave with a great job. And like we say, we've got people who've worked there for 18 months, 2 years, and I can guarantee you 99% of those people didn't come to us saying, oh my God, I can't wait to go and work in housekeeping.
Housekeeping is not a glamorous role. We know that. But again, it's that key thing. It's the access to that hidden talent we would never see as employers. We, again, as you say, we want to engage in those communities. We want to reach out to them, but we don't know how to. Yeah. But then also, I think that's kind of good as well, because PeoplePlus do the social recruitment advocacy group.
Well done.
Brag. I'm glad I can remember that. But that's been kind of good as well. So that's all about the social recruitment side. So
very much.
So what was the point of PeoplePlus doing Shrag?
So we've always felt as an organisation, doing the right thing is not something you do as a tick box exercise.
Yeah.
Many look, rightly or wrongly, there's organisations who do the right thing because it helps them with a bid, or helps them with a tender, or whatever, and I'm fine with that. I'm all right with that. I don't have any grievance with that. But there is also organisations who genuinely want to do the right thing, who genuinely want to help people from different backgrounds, disadvantaged backgrounds, etc. And that's where, from our point of view, one of the things that we are looking at doing is we've created a social recruitment advocacy group as a vehicle. to educate people better on how to do the right thing. So really bad example again with this is a lot of people want to go to the gym and want to get fit, but without a personal trainer, a lot of times you don't actually know how to work out properly, how to diet properly, how to do all those kind of things properly. And I think with the social recruitment advocacy group, one, because we deal with this on a day-to-day basis, it was a way for us to educate people. But one of the great things that's come out of it is all the different organisations now helping each other. So, for example, working with Omni, you might say, well, I've got a problem with this, and you could speak to someone at Anglian Water, for example. Now, what does a housekeeping company and a water company got in common? Absolutely nothing. But could have the same types of problems, and it's just a way of everyone kind of coming together. From my point of view, it's been an absolute pleasure to be part of it, because seeing those little kind of light bulb moments when people think, so I noticed that organisation's done that. I know they're nothing to do with us, they're not in the same sector or anything like that, but it's the same kind of problem that we've got, and we're going to use that solution in housekeeping, for example. And it's one of the things that's been really great is the big thing from the Strag's point of view is it's not a box ticking exercise. It's very much way beyond that. And it's helping people for the right reasons, but also helping people because they could and because it is the right thing to do. So, but yeah, the reason for creating it, mate, was just the fact that a lot of people want to do the right thing, but don't really know how to.
Yeah.
And it's trying to create a vehicle for them so that we can then educate them better on how to do that.
Yeah. I think it's good because the last time I know there's one coming up in May. I know that the last one was back in February.
Yep.
During Apprenticeship Week. I remember going up to Birmingham. I remember sitting in that room and we got into a conversation of dealing with people with disabilities, and especially deaf people. And Omni, we do have deaf people working for us, and they're amazing workers. But again, it was great because I could share our experience of dealing with someone who was deaf for the first time.
Yep.
To another employer that was like, actually, didn't even think of that. So that's why I love the group. And, you know, anybody that's listening, reach out to us, let us know.
Genuinely, mate, it's been one of the things that it's grown. We kind of started it off as a bit of an education tool for people, and then once we realised the level of interest in this, it's when we started to realise that there are so many people out there who genuinely want to do the right thing, who want help and support with these things, don't really know how to. We've created a vehicle for it, and it's the level of interest in it has been rather incredible, to say the least. Just because it is about the support network, not just from PeoplePlus's standpoint, but from everyone's standpoint, everyone getting together and having these kind of round table discussions where somebody pops an idea on the table, and before you know it, there's 5 different suggestions on how to fix something or how to come up with a solution to the problem. So it's been great to be part of. And if there's anyone listening to this who would be interested, please do not hesitate to reach out, because we would love you to be a constructive part of it.
Yeah, I already signed the charter. I'm trying to get to that gold status. So, like, you know me, mate. I'm a big advocate for working with employability companies like yourselves, because there's so much value to it. You support them within the first 3 months as well. We get them into work. We work well as partners through it. Is there any advice or like key points for employers that are listening to say like why it's key to team up or to partner with like PeoplePlus and companies like yourself?
In its simplest form, mate, recruitment, generally speaking, for most businesses, recruitment will be first, second, or third biggest pain point in the business. Typically, recruitment tends to be easily one of the top 5 pain points in a business.
Yeah.
And I mean, without trying to undersell it here, we have a potential solution for your problem that's fully government funded.
Well, what more can you ask?
If somebody can fix your problem for you and it's a free solution, why would you not jump all over that? I'm saying it's a free solution. It's not free. I hate using that word because it's not free, because obviously salaries are not free, buildings are not free. It's funded by the government. So the government have put aside money to help and support you. Why would you not take advantage of that?
And I'm in agreement. You know, look, there's all these employability programs. So, you know, you've got like Get Britain Moving Again or Get Britain Working. You've got your returnships, which are coming up. You know, you've got all these things there. And again, I think employers, we're very limited on what we know, and we hear about it. We try and Google it, don't find much out about it, and then we drop off.
That's one of the big things that we do quite a lot with businesses is we're a consultant for them as well. So when someone talks to us about, well, this is the kind of problem I've got, well, hopefully we are the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
And if we're not the solution to the problem, then what we'd like to do is guide you to who could be that solution. So, for example, if there's a pot of money that you can apply for, if there's another organisation that help and support that particular problem, we can direct you towards that. And because we work in the sector day in, day out, 99% of the time, I've normally got someone that I can put you in touch. If we are not the solution to the problem, I've got someone I can put you in touch with, and all of that has been government funded.
Yeah. And you know what I loved about it as well, and it was great because when obviously when the Ukrainians were coming in, and they were obviously fleeing the war, they're coming to the UK, and obviously we knew they were coming into Glasgow, and they were coming to Edinburgh, and we didn't know as an employer how that was going to look for you, especially in Scotland, where we're in omnis throughout Scotland. But I think that was a great thing about having this partnership, was I could pick up the phone to you and go, listen, Darren, what do you know? I know you know people. Do you know anything about it? What's going on? And I loved it because when I used to sit in ops meetings, they'd be like, oh, what's going on with the Ukrainians in Scotland? I'd be like, let me make a quick phone call.
Yep.
I can tell you exactly.
I know it, man.
Yeah, that's it. You're my hotline. But I think it was great because you've got that insight, and if you don't, as you say, you know somebody that will.
There's very few times where someone's asked me a question that I don't know the answer to, or I don't know the person don't know the answer to the problem. Very, very seldom, and that's where I think a lot of businesses, especially with the partnership part of it, and the more we've got to work with each other, as soon as someone's got up, so Ukraine's a classic example. We were obviously heavily involved in that, and you could pick the phone up. Darren, I don't know, but do you know? And if you don't know, and Peter, like from our point of view, we will always direct you to whoever is the best person for that solution or for that problem. And that's what a lot of employers have kind of leaned on us quite heavily recently is when we're talking about social recruitment advocacy group, and what we've got another thing called the SRF, which is a social recruitment framework. If we are not the solution to your problem, I'll know someone that is. There's very, very, I'm saying very few. I can't remember a single problem that an employer's phoned me with that I didn't have a solution for them, whether it's themselves or putting you in touch with someone else.
Yeah. And that's what I love, because although we initially made contact with each other for Glasgow, we've had that conversations of like Aberdeen, we've had the conversations like teaming up with the UK. So like in England, like people have got, down in London and in Manchester and Liverpool, we've done stuff in Liverpool. And that's what I love, because I can go out to the recruitment team that are in my company and go, listen, these are your contacts in your areas. Give them a call. They know who we are. They'll sort you out. And the team already knows. So, and a lot of the groundwork is done from that initial stuff we did at the beginning of our partnerships. And that's why I'm going to say to any employer that's listening, build that partnership, build that relationship, be open and honest from the beginning, say what you're looking for and work closely together, because that's the only way it's going to work, I think.
Yes, exactly, mate. So, but yeah, it's the partnership part of it is, again, when I talk about partnerships, it's not just about partnerships with employers, it's partnerships getting referrals on, it's partnerships even with other employability providers. We partner with everyone to make sure that when an employer comes to us, we've got that solution for you, whatever that looks like. So yeah, awesome, mate.
Cool. So what about one question I have for you? All your years of experience in recruitment, and you are a legend. If there are people that are looking for work, what advice would you give them?
Like the best advice I would give them, mate, is that there is an employability provider everywhere in the UK. And employability is a bit of a kind of government word. It basically means that the government's attempt to put programmes in place or bringing people like us to support unemployed people back into work. I mean, that is it in its simplest form. The whole point of employability programme is to support an unemployed person through a journey and move them into sustainable work. Yeah, that's it in its absolute simplest form. So the best thing they can do is, I'm going to assume that they'll know their postcode. If you typed in employability provider and you type in your postcode, Google will spit out who the employability provider or providers are in your local area. And all you have to do is literally let them know that you're currently unemployed, let them know that you're currently wanting. All the employability programs that we work with are volunteer programs. Now, what I mean by that is I don't volunteer. I am paid to do this, but you're not sanctioned by the job centre to come on to the programs. It's very much a case of, if you want to start working and you want the support, it's there for you. If you don't, okay, so it's entirely up to you. There's nothing forced upon you. It's not one of these things where you're made to come on to the employability programs. But if you type in your postcode into Google, and I know some people might come from digital poverty, so if you can go to a library or you can find someone with a smartphone or whatever, literally if you type in employability in your postcode, it will tell you who the provider is for that area. Hopefully it's us and we can help and support you, but if it's not a problem, because we've still got the providers that we partner up with in various other areas, and you'll get the help and support. The thing is, this is one of these big things where people don't ask for help because they don't know it exists. You're never going to ask for something if you didn't know it existed. And that's one of the big things that, like, so for example, my job, which is out about and speaking to people and creating these partnerships, it's very much about letting people know that the help and support is available to you. All you have to do is ask. But again, if you didn't know it existed, you wouldn't ask. So one of the things we're trying to do is create a bigger awareness of what help and support is available. But if anyone is listening to this who's currently unemployed, pop onto Google. However you can get that, even if it's through a library or whatever, just pop onto Google, type in your postcode, and it'll tell you who's the employability provider, and just reach out to them and they will help you.
Excellent advice. I love it. Well, mate, thank you very much. It's been great talking, so I'm going to wrap it up now.
It's been a pleasure.
It's always been a pleasure. So everybody, thank you for listening. If you want to link in with PeoplePlus or Darren or anything, I'll put all the details in the bio. But again, thank you for listening, and keep listening every Monday for a new episode of Say It Is with Pete. You can also listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts from. So until next week, goodbye.